La porte de son travail prolifique parallèle à l'histoire de l'Inde indépendante. Son art ressort de la vie, mais ne fait pas son miroir. Au lieu, c'est une réponse à l'humeur d'une nation. Une gamme d'expériences sociales, mélangée avec son expression passionnée propre comme un chercheur sensible. Un peintre, un sculpteur, un architecte, un écrivain, un homme aux multiples talents et même plus ressoudre. Un homme qui est une source d'inspiration pour tout ce qui veut se libérer de l'embrayage de circonstances. Satish Gujral, un des plus grands artistes modernes de l'Inde. Né en Partition du Punjab occidental en 1925, un accident qui a blessé sa jambe lui a également laissé sourd à l'âge de 8 ans. Une série de chirurgies pour sa jambe lui a également confiné à son lit et a tourné sa vie dans un véritable cauchemar.
Whenever someone asks me the question about my childhood, the answer that fill myself is, if I really had a childhood, when I lost my hearing and could not even walk because of a leg injury, I lay in bed. I began to read Iqbal and Ghalib when I was 12. Once you start living in a world that is created by a poet or a writer, you lose touch with real life. It is what built my personality.
La perte de l'audition a rapidement conduit à une perte de la parole cohérente et l'estime de soi. Mais le père de Satish, Avatar Narayan, a été déterminé à lutter contre les désaccords. Inspiré par certains griffonnages que Satish avait faits, il a exploré l'idée de le présenter à une langue graphique. À 13 ans, Satish a obtenu l'admission à l'école des arts Mayon à Lahore pour étudier l'art appliqué. Le programme ici a été conçu par Rudyard Kipling, le père de l'écrivain Rudyard Kipling. Kipling croyait que la peinture, la sculpture et l'architecte étaient l'art de l'espace et avait élaboré un programme visé à faire revivre l'artisanat traditionnel indien, dilué par des années de souveraineté britannique. Les années à Mayo a donné Satish un nouvel vocabulaire qui l'a aidé à faire face avec le silence accroissant de sa vie. La multiplicité de la formation qu'il a été exposée a eu un impact durable de son art et lui a mué dans un peintre qui sculpte aussi et construit.
After finishing with Lahore, I wanted to be only a painter, and so I went to Bombay JJ School for entry. At JJ, in those days, my classmates or schoolmates incidentally happened to be those who later walked the center stage in modern art.
There are very few who've been tutored as closely as he has been, I mean, he can draw. Very few people can. I mean, amongst contemporary painters now, I think there are very few who can really draw, who understand drawing the way it should be understood. You can take liberties with these things only after you know what you're taking liberties against, There's no such thing as abstract freedom. And the only abstract freedom that there is in death. Then you're free.
Pendant le séjour à Lahore, Satish a grandi près de son frère aîné Inder, qui est devenu le 12e Premier ministre de Londres. In le cercle des amis de gauche, injecté en lui une ferveur de la révolution sociale. Beaucoup comme Ali Sardar Jaffri, Faiz est devenu grand écrivain et poète dont l'écrit a échoué des sentiments du peuple au cours du mouvement de l'indépendance de Londres.
Like Faiz Ahmed Faiz, Makhdoom Mohyuddin, they have been revolutionary poets. They have expressed a lot of very subtle romantic imagery through poetry, wanting freedom. And when they got freedom, it came like shattered. Like Faiz writes, "Ye daag daag ujala, ye shab gazida sahar, wo intezar tha jiska ye wo sahar to nahi," वगैरह. So people have been very deeply influenced by whatever happens in a nation. Like Iqbal writes that nations are born in the heart of poets and die in the hands of politicians.
Au début de 1947, la lutte pour la liberté a éteint sa apogée. L'Empire britannique a été cédé finalement à la demande d'indépendance et de quitter Londres. L'angoisse nouée de la partition a suivi. L'amputation du pays a vu la souffrance au-delà de la mesure comme les réfugiés affolés ont été arrachés de leurs racines. Satish a vécu la partition de près. Et l'image de brutalité et l'humanité a laissé une impression indélébile sur lui.
No outer happening can feed inner compulsion. It must happen to you personally. And so, my first beginning as artist was partition. I witnessed killing, murder, rape. I painted a man suffering. And people of those days adopted me as their artist.
One of his strongest early periods is the works that were devoted to the pathos, anguish that he as an individual and we as a nation experienced as a result of this division. I mean, these are very powerful works which push us to go down to those recesses of our existence which are essentially not expressible in such a simpler fashion.
His own personal history of displacement in this juncture, being torn from his roots in Pakistan, made him create the Partition series that was so full of angst and anguish and displacement and actually being forcibly pulled out of your cultural, historical roots.
La série de Partition de Satish a attiré un grand nombre de critiques élogieuses et l'a amené à obtenir une bourse pour étudier le muralisme au Mexique. Ce nouveau voyage à sa vie semblait plein de pressentiments, car il était un voyage à l'étranger pour la première fois, sans aucune connaissance de l'anglais et aucune possibilité de s'attendre.
It was the fact of communism that I thought murals. I thought easel painting was meant for the money. You paint and you end up in a drawing room. So I believed in murals where public can enjoy it.
La peinture murale au Mexique faisait partie d'une campagne visant à réformer la peinture esthétique et l'art de l'asseoir hors de l'espace confiné de galeries dans le royaume des gens.
In 1920, with a revolutionary government, the person who was at the time the Minister of Education, whose name was José Vasconcelos, he thought that the best way to make people familiar with their history, with the struggles that brought them the benefits of this revolution, they were part of it, that the history was not made only by heroes, but by the average man. And that is what artists, muralists like Diego Rivera, Orozco, and Siqueiros as well, introduced in public walls in Mexico.
C'est avec Diego Rivera et Securis, les artistes les plus acclamés murales, que Gujral a appris les éléments de l'art public. Il a également développé un lien très intellectuel avec Fredo Kahlo, les artistes célèbres au Mexique. Freda a eu grand intérêt dans la culture indienne et les traditions spirituelles. Il était dans cette période que Satish a brisé toutes les perceptions normales et a appris à parler anglais et espagnol, langue qu'il n'avait jamais connue qu'avant il a perdu l'audition. Avec sa nouvelle confiance, Gujral a retourné en Inde et a été chargé de faire un portrait de Lala Lajpat Rai, le combattant de liberté, populairement connu sous le nom de Lion de Punjab. Ce portrait avait un passage religieux de la salle centrale du Parlement et l'amenait à l'avis de Jawaharlal Nehru, le premier ministre de l'Inde indépendante. Une série de portraits d'œuvres suivre a commencé par Nehru lui-même et sa fille, Indira Gandhi. Cette période lui a apporté près de la première famille, mais a aussi apporté un nouveau rayon de lumière dans sa vie. Kiran.
My marriage was one thing that changed my life and outlook. Earlier, what seeded my frustration was missing the link with life and the world. But after I married, Kiran became my bridge with life. She interpreted everything that was said. So, having lost the reason to frustrate, my happiness began.
It was amazing that, in spite of his not hearing, he was very witty, very humorous, and had a lot of stories to tell, and didn't have any self-pity for himself at all, or he didn't seek any. And it was very important for me that such a serious and senior artist showed so much interest in me.
Honestly, the relationship he has with my mother is quite fantastic. I mean, my mother came from a reasonably well-to-do family. Her father threatened to throw her out of the house if she married this penniless artist. And but she just took a leap of faith and married him. And with not knowing where the next rupee is going to come from, how they're going to support themselves, and they had, I must say, a real struggle when they started. They used to walk from their house to my uncle's house to eat food. They had no money to pay rent. But I think that's, and of course she was his muse. She sort of was his alter ego. I mean, he saw the world through her.
Bien que le revenu de Satish était maigre et la vie n'était pas facile, le mariage a amené la couleur et un nouveau geste dans sa vie. L'angoisse et la révolte en lui progressivement disparu, comme Kiran a devenu ses oreilles, et lui a inspiré de sortir de son style sombre de la peinture. À cette époque, l'industrialisation de Nehru inspirait le pays. Delhi, la capitale de l'Inde moderne, a eu un certain nombre de bâtiments imposants qui entourent le palais présidentiel, le Rasina Hills. Le Premier ministre Nehru était très favorable à l'activité artistique et à la demande de Gujral officiellement attribué 2% du coût de bâtiment du gouvernement d'être dédié à l'art.
In the Nehruvian phase, what he saw was the industrial forms that were coming up, the big dams and the multi-storied buildings, infrastructure projects, and the whole thing that the Nehruvian era was saying was that we are going to take India to a newer level through industrialization.
Poussé par un sentiment de contribuer à la croissance de la nation, Gujral a tourné vers l'art public. Cela a marqué la fin de sa période de partition, lui catapulant dans la série de projets de peinture murale qui ont favorisé sa préoccupation et l'architecture et l'espace. L'échelle de peinture murale ont eu un impact dramatique sur le spectateur et consciemment et inconsciemment contribué à créer une niche sur l'art et l'artiste, dans le conscient du public.
You know, it was like a crucible and a hotbed for constant change. And you know, at every phase and every stage, the sort of constant need to tamper with success, to not take it as something to be complacent about or to get comfortable in.
L'expérience mexicaine avait résigné Satish que l'art natif pourrait être une grande source d'inspiration pour incarner le short palpitant de la modernité. Satish a tourné vers une forme avec les possibilités spectrales et sculpturales. Elle a été suivie par des sculptures volumineuses en bois brûlé qui a eu une sinueuse musculaire et a une qualité primordiale. Ils ont reflété la physique sociale qui est venue entendre la suite de l'urgence de 1975, peut-être la période la plus controversielle dans l'histoire de l'Inde indépendante, où les libertés civiles ont été suspendues et la démocratie a été menotée.
I remember him being very, very disturbed by the situation the country was in at that time. And then he made those bruntwoods of that phase, which were all related to bondage and all kind of restrictions. And if you see that work of his, it's got a lot of belts and, you know, things tied up and ropes and things like that. So that I remember was very, very much part of that.
Dans le fin de l'année 1970, Gujral a commencé à s'agiter à nouveau. Pour lui, l'excitation de ce nouveau style et de médium était presque thérapeutique et compensait l'absence de son air dans sa vie. Contre les conseils de tous ses amis, il a décidé d'ouvrir une nouvelle perspective de la créativité et tenter sa chance à l'architecture.
I don't think it even occurred to him that he was not an architect. Architecture is, besides being form, there are technicalities to it. And I think the sheer confidence that he portrayed made the other person believe that obviously he knows what he's doing, and then he sort of found his way how to put that into a reality.
Gujral a librement exercé son imagination sur la toile en 3 dimensions qu'il a maintenant adoptée. Sa vision lui a permis de synthétiser les peintures, la sculpture, l'architecture dans une forme fluide. En 1984, Gujral a été invité à concevoir l'ambassade de Belgique à New Delhi. Cette allocation a mis des défis énormes, qui ont été engravés par un incident sur le site qui lui a conduit à une autre chirurgie de chirurgie de jambes et une amputation.
He was bedridden for 2 years. He used to get carried on a stretcher. We had a sort of a stretcher chair made for him, so he used to come to the side and inspect it. And those are things that inspired you, that here is a man who's even at that point of weakness, never give up. He has that spirit that I've taken on a commitment. I have to see it through. He treated it like a baby. He was fighting against all odds of other people in the profession, saying, how can an artist, pull off an architectural story? And he did.
Le projet de l'ambassade de Belgique a créé un point de repère architectural dans l'Inde actuelle. Et Gujral est devenu le premier non-belge à être décoré à l'ordre de Conrunu en architecture par le roi de Belgique. Quand ce fils a pris le règne d'architecture, Satish a entrepris une nouvelle série de peintures et entré éventuellement à la période la plus lyrique dans son carrière. Motifs musicaux ont rempli les attendus, comme si son avait rempli sa vie. La douleur convoltée est transformée en trente chromatiques, riche en joie et une débauche de couleurs bleues sur la toile. Avec les tournantes du siècle, Gujral a répondu à nouveau à l'humeur d'une nation. T20 de cricket avait capturé l'imagination du pays. Gujral était aussi pris dans une turbulence dans son féminisme. Il a découvert le rythme et la précision du corps sportif, la tension musculaire de révolté, les sautes de triomphe et les poésies du mouvement.
Well, cricket is not just a sport for India. Everybody knows that it's more of a socio-cultural practice, a passion for people. And Gujral has been interested in the way society as a whole reacts to any event, whether it is ritual, whether it's performance. And for him, cricket therefore becomes a performance, a collective performance.
A ce juncture, l'économie indienne a commencé à grandir et la nation est marquée par la modernisation rapide. L'art indien contemporain attirait l'attention internationale. Les mythes étaient de grands correctionnaires et de nouveaux masculages individuels, et des sociétés internationales et nationales ont commencé à émerger. La vente en enchères de l'art indien par des maisons d'enchères ont donné un cachet supplémentaire d'une recognition internationale et annoncé son arrivée dans ce monde entier.
I think art is one thing which definitely it's got to do with the spirit, it's got to do with the soul, and it's got to do with the sense of beauty and humanity. But when you see cultures through the window of art, there's a huge binding factor, which is the essence of art. I mean, even if you take something like music, Bade Ghulam Ali said that if every home Shastriya Sangeet was taught, classical music, there may not have been a partition. So I think art is a very, very important fragrance of culture. It's a very, very important attribute of a society, and civilizations which are bereft of art, they have no fragrance.
Satish Gujral, un artiste qui incarne l'image par l'excellence de nature de lutte artistique, un artiste qui sort en gagnant en dépit de tous ses handicaps. Contenu social a imprégné son travail car il a vécu et travaillé dans la calamité de la phase de situation externe. Aucun support unique a été mesure de détacher parce que, comme son esprit, son art circule librement sans être géré par des obstacles.
Now it's just his joy of living and being alive, and if you see his work, it's like you don't think it's an 85-year-old man painting. I think he's just full of the joie de vivre, to live and to be there.
खुद कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है.
A extensão de sua obra prolífica paralela à história da Índia independente. Uma gama de experiências sociais, misturada com a sua própria expressão apaixonada, com o buscador sensível. O pintor, um escultor, um arquiteto, um escritor, um homem de muitos talentos e ainda com grande resolução, Satish Gujral, um dos maiores artistas da Índia moderna. Nascido em Punjab Ocidental pré-partição em 1925, um acidente que feriu sua perna também o deixou surdo na idade tenra de 8 anos. Uma série de cirurgias para a perna limitou-o mais para sua cama e tornou a vida inicial no pesadelo vivo.
Whenever someone asks me the question about my childhood, the answer that fill myself is, if I really had a childhood.
Aos 3 anos, Satish entrou na Escola de Artes Mayo em Lahore para estudar artes aplicadas. A multiplicidade do treino a que ele foi exposto teve um impacto duradouro sobre a sua arte e moldou-o num pintor que também esculpe e construi.
There are very few who've been tutored as closely as he has been, you know. I mean, he can draw. Very few people can. I mean, amongst contemporary painters now, I think there are very few who can really draw, who understand drawing the way it should be understood.
No início de 1947, a luta pela liberdade tinha chegado ao seu pico. O Império Britânico cedeu à reivindicação de independência e decidiu sair da Índia. A nó da angústia de partição seguiu. Satish experimentou a partição de perto e as imagens de ambos, brutalidade e humanidade, deixaram uma impressão indelével nele.
I witnessed killing, murder, rape. I painted the man suffering, and people of those days adopted me as their artist.
One of his strongest early periods is the works that were devoted to the pathos, anguish that he as an individual and we as a nation experienced as a result of this division.
A série de partição do Satish trouxe um monte de elogios de críticos, levou a conseguir uma bolsa para estudar muralismo no México. Foi com Diego Rivera e Siqueiros, os artistas mais aclamados do mural, que Gujral aprendeu os fundamentos da arte pública. Com sua confiança recém-descoberta, Gujral retornou à Índia e foi contratada para fazer um retrato de Lala Lajpat Rai, o combatente da liberdade popularmente conhecido como o Leão de Punjab. E trouxe-o em conhecimento de Jawaharlal Nehru, o primeiro-ministro da Índia independente. Mas também trouxe um novo raio de luz na sua vida, Kiran.
After I married, Kiran became my bridge with life. She interpreted everything that was said. So, having lost the reason to frustrate, my happiness began.
Impelido por um sentido de contribuir para o crescimento da nação, Gujral virou para a arte pública. Isto marcou o fim da sua fase de partição, catapultando-o para uma série de projetos dos murais que acentuou sua preocupação com a arquitetura e espaço.
At every phase and every stage, the sort of constant need to tamper with success, to not take it as something to be complacent about or to get comfortable in.
Nos finais dos anos 1970, Gujral começou a ficar inquieto novamente. Muito contra os conselhos de todos seus amigos, ele decidiu abrir uma nova perspectiva de criatividade e tentar sua mão na arquitetura. Em 1984, Gujral foi convidado para projetar a Embaixada de Bélgica em Nova Delhi. Esta tarefa tinha enormes desafios que foram agravados por um acidente no local que levou a uma outra série de cirurgias nas pernas e quase uma amputação.
He has that spirit that I've taken on a commitment. I have to see it through. He treated it like a baby. He was fighting against all odds of other people in the profession, saying, how can an artist, pull off an architectural story? And he did.
Nesta conjuntura, a economia indiana começou a crescer e a nação foi sendo moldada pela rápida globalização. A arte contemporânea indiana estava atraindo a atenção internacional. O leilão de arte indígena por casas de leilões internacionais deu-lhe um carimbo de reconhecimento internacional e anunciou a sua chegada em todo o mundo.
When you see cultures through the window of art, there's a huge binding factor, which is the essence of art. And civilizations which are bereft of art, they have no fragrance.
Satish Gujral, artista que encarna a imagem por excelência da luta artística, artista que emerge como vencedor, apesar de todas as suas desvantagens. Conteúdo social sempre permeou o seu trabalho para que ele viveu e trabalhou as calamidades e trabalhou face às adversidades extremas, no meio único que tem sido capaz de prendê-lo, porque com seu próprio espírito, sua arte flui livremente sem ser contido por quaisquer barreiras.
Now it's just his joy of living and being alive, and if you see his work, it's like you don't think it's an 85-year-old man painting. I think he's just full of the joie de vivre, to live and to be there.
खुद को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है.